All right, Vince, as much as we enjoy getting into the deep nitty-gritty of miniature painting, which is what we've been doing for the last 20 minutes, instead of recording this podcast, maybe we should do that. What are we talking about, Vince?
Why, today, my friend, we are going to, it's time to open the kimono, as they say. We're going to lay ourselves bare, prostrate ourselves, as it were, and beg for the forgiveness of the community as we share our own game mastering horror stories from our many, 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 many years of running games, some of the worst mistakes we've made, and what we learned from them, and how you as a player can help, hopefully, prevent this from happening at your player or a GM help prevent this from happening at your table.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is we made these mistakes so you don't have to. But
Right.
we all make mistakes. I think maybe that's the thing before we get into our fun other topics before the main topic is to preface this by saying number one rule of DM Club is you're going to make mistakes in DM Club,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
the more that you are open with that, and the more you have open conversations with your players about having constructive feedback to grow as a DM, as they can grow as players and as they want to run games, that everyone learns from everyone. That's kind of our goal here, right? Right.
You got it. So we're going to deep dive into all of that, but of course, first we've got some other segments first.
Yeah, you got some news here, Vince. What's news on the the wire? Beep 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 beep.
Okay, so yeah, we'll start this week with a little bit of news. I saw, by the way, somebody may have left a comment that they liked the little bit of news. Hey, thanks. I'm glad you liked a little
Appreciate
bit of
that.
news. Yeah, no, please tell us what segments you like and don't like, because we're going to try a bunch of different little segments and optional segments and bounce around. So we do want to hear from you in the comments. What do you like? What don't you like? We're going to continue to grow and shape the show. All right, little bit of news. So first off, very much an overlap with our normal world, John,
Yeah.
which is Paizo has partnered with Titan Forge and the oft used by me, My Mini Factory,
Yes.
to create and release STLs. So the first 6 will be for Starfinder, like the 6 iconics from Starfinder, but they're going to expand to do more Pathfinder and Starfinder characters and character options going forward.
I assume that means they'll have the iconic Pathfinder characters, as well known in their player's handbook and such. Those that were, I think it was like Deep Cuts was the name of the physical minis you could buy, the pre-painted ones of those. That's cool. So for those that don't know, when Vince says words like My Mini Factory and STLs,
a fair point, yeah.
He's referring to 3D printing.
Yes.
So if you have a 3D printer, or even better, if you have a friend that has a 3D printer, you can now get some Paizo miniatures printed, as many as you want. And to me, this is all about, are they going to bring out their iconic kobolds and goblin minis? Because I love the Paizo kobolds and goblins. Like, their art take on those are so great. And I want to be able to have a room of 20 goblins. And if you have STLs for that, that's a lot more cost effective than buying 20 individual miniatures.
You love them because they're Wayne Reynolds art. That's what you love. And like, they chained him in the after he was busy illustrating like all of Eberron in D&D 3.0. Paizo then snatched him away and chained him in the basement so he could illustrate every single thing for Pathfinder ever. That guy, just his output is incredible. And yes, I agree. I love his goblins. I think the closest goblins to those right now, by the way, available are the little goblins from Goblin Hobbies from Casey and Brent from their production.
They
got that big head, angular
pumpkin
features,
head,
pointy ears. Yeah, they got the pumpkin heads.
They're kind of shaped like Hey Arnold, right? It's a football shaped head. And and then just a big wide smile that goes most of the length of the football. Yeah,
exactly.
And the kobolds too. I always prefer the Paizo kobolds over the Wizards of the Coast kobolds. They just they feel a little bit more reptilian and a little bit less like I'm just trying to be a rat that he made babies with a weird dragon thing.
I'll always be partial to the second edition dog-faced little tiny kobolds with their little spider on a stick. That's my kobold forever. All right, so that was that one. So exciting stuff. Nice crossover between our two areas of interest. Even though eventually we will talk about our feelings on miniatures at the table. Don't worry, it's coming, folks. It's coming. We will get there.
We had to lay enough of a runway for that because that is going to be a firestorm of the
That's
likes
going to
of
be an
which.
explosive episode. John and I will be just dropping bombs. Yes. About to ruin this man's whole career. All right. So
Next
this
one.
one's very pertinent to my current sort of DMing and playing every week, in that it's old ideas are just new again, John. We can't do anything new. The D&D starter set for the new edition. You remember that new edition that came out like a year ago?
Year and a
Remember that
half?
one?
Yeah. Yeah. Remember that one? Yeah.
Like literally a year ago because it released at Gen Con and we managed to all get our players' handbooks, except me, ironically, at Gen Con. Everybody got the like one of the 500 copies or whatever of my whole group. And like we're 2 weeks away from going back to Gen Con. So anyways, the D&D new starter set for this edition is finally launching. You might think if you're going to launch a new edition, wouldn't you want the starter set to be available to bring people into the new edition? You would, but they didn't. So anyways, it's an updated Keep on the Borderlands. Okay. Now, notably, so this takes the place of like the Lost Mines of Phandelver and, the other previous starter sets they did. Notably, this is much more expensive than those. This one's like basically the same price as the book. It's got a lot of stuff in it. It's got like a whole book dedicated to the keep, a whole book dedicated to the Caves of Chaos, all this kind of stuff. It has like little maps. It has a ton of cards. So like spear and shield and potion of healing and, everything you can find in there, that kind of stuff. So it comes out September 16th. My God, that still seems so far away. But like it's $50 compared to the old ones, which were 20 and 25 respectively, the previous two starters. So
are they soft cover books then at that price point?
It's like it's one of those like packagey dealios, right?
Yeah,
where it's like a case that comes with all the stuff in there. So
they're smart though, because it's a starter set, but it's the only place to get the updated version of Keep on the Borderlands. So if you already have stuff and you don't typically buy a starter set, you're a veteran of D&D, you're going to feel like you should still buy this, right?
Yeah, I perused the whole announcement and like it's a lengthy announcement from Wizards on it. My issue with the announcement is it spent most of the time discussing like, look at all these cool things you get, and you get the little punch outs and standees and a little maps and you get pre-gen starter characters with cards you can use, like a fighter, a rogue, a cleric, and a wizard. And so if you literally, which is fine, that's all good. Like I'm not upset with any of that. That's all correct. It literally means you can go from 0 to playing. Okay, so that's good. My issue is they didn't actually explain the adventure in the article I read announcing it like at all. I was like, well, how much of the original, what did you keep here? I'm literally running this adventure right now. Right. So it is fresh in my mind. Now, given I'm using the Return to the Keep on the Borderlands, but it's not, there's similarities between the two versions, right? They are actually great echoes of each other. And I think both are two of the best adventures ever written. Is this going to maintain the same thing? Is the world going to feel as real? Is there going to be as many interlocking, overlapping ways to explore, the surrounding and get different groups involved and have time pass and different things occur? I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess my brain immediately goes to the fact that the sheer size of the typical starter set adventure, it's closer to an adventure than it is any kind of substantive campaign.
Right.
That Keep on the Borderlands feels much more deep than that. So are they creating a much more abridged version? Or is that why it's twice as much because it's twice as big plus this extra bullshit? Or is it all the extra stuff is why they're charging you twice as much?
Yeah, I don't know. So color me interested, but
sus. You're a little bit sus.
Sus. Yeah, there you go. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of like extra tchotchke stuff, I got the Dagger Heart books here. Well, book singular, the hardcover that I'm borrowing from a friend, and in that it looks like it's another big fancy book, but in reality,
it's cards.
It's just a box full of cards. If I can open it, yeah, it's just it looks
go.
like we can play some Lorcana or some shit later. I choose the Archer Mickey Mouse as my hero. But yeah, I'm gonna have to dig through all of this. They even have like numbers in the corners on these cards. They got spell cards. They have ability cards, that kind of thing. So I'm curious how far are we devolving back to 4th edition D&D here with this kind of stuff, or is it
I
just
mean,
kind of
people love a game aid, right? And I don't blame them. It goes all the way back to, very early days. Back in the 80s, they printed the game aids and cards and stuff. It's people like having physical objects to reference. I get it.
Yeah, I like that too. I mean, some part of it is cool. I remember, back in 5th edition when that was relatively new and they came out the character class cards. So you have your deck, and so if you're playing a spellcaster, it felt good when you had this whole big stack of cards. You're like,
Absolutely.
what am I gonna do today? That feels good. What is Mutants and Masterminds, Vince? And
Yes,
why
this
do
is
we
our
care
last
about it?
little bit of news. So, Mutants and Masterminds it's a superhero game. Okay, quite obviously a superhero RPG. Probably from the name you could get that impression. And it was originally, it's sort of one of the last vestiges from like the 3.0 D20 boom heyday. The last version of this came out like 15 years ago. I think like 2010, 2009, somewhere in there. And it was a really fun superhero game. Like, we're going to do a whole show at some point. I'm going to browbeat John into doing a superhero game episode because I really do love superhero RPGs, and I think that they're so unique and different than other RPG experiences. But anyways, they finally, after 15, 16 years, are making a new edition in the works. So we're going to finally get a new Mutants and Masterminds. I don't know anything more about it, but they said we won't have to wait long to find out. Like, they basically just announced that it's happening. And I thought, oh, well, then it's going to be like months. But no, they said they're going to put out a beta version of it next month for people to play around with. So like, they're going to let the community like play with it from the earliest days. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I'll be checking that out.
Wow, that's pretty sweet. Yeah, I will take a look into that. I can't remember what the name of the old one that was around back when I played. It was like late 2nd edition D&D, where they had. I can picture the cover of that book really distinctly. But yeah, superhero games. Never played one, but I know that just like superhero MMO video games, they are an interesting, different kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was a big City of Heroes player when that came out, for sure.
I bet you were.
Yeah, absolutely. So, at any rate, there you go. That's some little bits of news.
All right, we got a couple other little tidbits we want to talk about before we dig into the main topic here. And the first one is, Vince, I got a question for you. Have you ever experienced an escape room? Have you ever done team building?
I've done an escape room. Yeah, this is, if you work in a corporation, you've done an escape room at some point in time.
My daughter loves escape rooms. She will go to an escape room whenever possible. And so for a family get together with the in-laws, we did another escape room just this past weekend. And there's so much of that where I'm like, y'all don't even know it, but you're kind of playing Dungeons and Dragons right now.
Sure.
But we're never rolling a dice. And it's so interesting how people that maybe would not be into this kind of role-playing, storytelling, problem-solving, mystery kind of a game experience, when put in a slightly different environment, in a strip mall or some stuff,
sure,
suddenly it's just like, yeah, we can go do this. It's just like going to mini golf. And I have so much fun. Actually, when we were doing this last one, it was called the Bomb Maker's Apartment. So it was a modern day one, not so much horror, but just kind of how the name implies. The story was there was a bomb in there, secret rooms, all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I'm going to take some of these puzzles for my D&D campaign, not one-to-one, but you can, like, I give a lot of credit to the people that come up with these, because they're fairly intricate. And there's a lot of moving parts of going back and forth to different sections, solving and unlocking things, and then having that tail back into something from the previous room, and always having you moving, but not making you feel like you don't know if you've completed a thing or not. And I think there's something in that in being a DM that's really valuable too, is those moments of, we completed a thing, we see the satisfaction of that reward, and we see where we need to go next because of this. And it's not always a direct line either. That's the cool part about this.
I think it's an interesting zoomed in microcosm of an element of D&D. Like searching a room is a pretty classic thing to do, right? A dungeon is in the title. When you get in the dungeon, you're generally doing like two things: killing a thing in a room and then searching the room for stuff. Because it is like home invasion, murder, and theft is like the subtitle of what D&D is actually mostly about. And the interesting part to me is I never like people saying I searched the room.
Oh, me.
Okay.
Me too.
What are you doing?
Right.
I've described the room to you. What do you do? Tell me what you're looking for, what you're doing. What are you touching? Right? What are you moving? Where are you looking? Are you looking for secret doors? Are you looking for hidden compartments in the furniture? Are you like rolling bodies of what you just killed? And, like blah, 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 blah. Right. And I really have pushed people very hard in my recent game on specificity. Okay. And I think because it makes it just more crunchy, more real. And an escape room forces you into that realism. You wouldn't get out of an escape room by just like, well, let's just search the room. Heck, you talking about search the room? Yeah, we're all doing that. We know that. That's what this is. You look over there in that cabinet, see if there's anything. I'm going to try to read this puzzle on the wall and figure out if it has any clues. You look over there on the armoire and see if anything's inside or there's anything hidden. Is there a key over there or something? Right? Like you got to get real specific. And like that's more zoomed in than you generally want in D&D, but somewhere in between those two, it gives you a happy medium, right? And it can give you some tips as to how you can sort of disguise and layer and chain things together.
Yeah, and I think zooming in and zooming out is a very important thing for us to do as we're running a game. If we're hyper zoomed in all the time for wanting very obscure specific things to get anywhere, that's probably going to be an issue that one of our failures we're going to talk about later. Your whole session will go to a crawl and your players will get frustrated. If you zoom way too far out all the time, then players think that search the room is the amount of depth and the amount of like impact they need to have on the world to get any sort of answer. So moving back and forth in that is really important. One other thing with the escape room that I realized was like communication and your perception of the thing you're looking at or how you're interpreting it and putting it out vocally to the rest of your group will get you closer to a solution or a different perspective on the situation than you will ever have on your own. And I was just like, oh, I never would have thought of that. I said it out loud. I'm like, there's a bunch of letters on this refrigerator and it feels like they're, supposed to be in some kind of order or something. And then somebody else says, like, what are the colors? Do the colors matter? And I'm like, oh, okay. What if we use this? And then somebody says something over here, a different piece of paper, and it said, primaries right to left. And I'm like, primary colors. So some of the colors were blue, yellow, and red, but other ones were green and purple. And then my brother-in-law thought green was a primary color. So we had to have a conversation in that moment to discuss the color wheel.
Did you say, excuse me, I am an artiste. I know what primary colors are. And then you had to explain the difference between like CMYK versus RGB.
Yeah. Yes. I said, actually, magenta would be the... No, I think I actually stopped and turned to him and said, are you saying you think green is a primary color? And he just looked at me. I'm like, okay, here's my moment. But yeah, it's like those interactions. So like at the D&D table, that's why we want them to investigate specific things. And sometimes us as a DM, we're giving their like internal monologue to the table and say, this is what you see. This is what's interesting about this. And you notice that there's a weird little crack in the wall over here that it looks like there's tiny little rat tracks going in and out of. So instead of them having to repeat that, you're assuming their characters are saying everything they're seeing, but forcing them to interact in different ways.
To vocalize and interact.
Yeah, is important. I'm always a fan of the sticky notes. I don't know if you ever keep a pad of sticky notes at your desk, but I love writing.
I keep a notebook.
A single sticky note, slapping it in front of them because players, it's like a little present. It's like, ooh, only I know.
It's a good idea. I'll keep some sticky notes. I like that. Yeah. Good tip.
And then how it gives them an opportunity to like role play with their characters' motivations. Would they say everything? Would they say it word for word? Would they paraphrase it? Is there something that's more important to them? Or I've had this where players want to tell everything to everyone, but they don't read it word for word. And the whole party went the wrong fucking way because they couldn't read a sentence correctly. And it was an obvious clue, like paraphrased it.
Now, that wasn't your bad handwriting, right?
No,
you were,
no.
Okay.
I've got good handwriting. So yeah, so that was my escape room, like, aha moment. So
nice.
If you want to talk about inspiration or things to take away, if you've ever been to an escape room, or if not, and you're looking for something fun to do at work or with family or something, it's actually field research for your RPG games.
Absolutely. You probably write it off for your taxes or something. I don't know. You can
do that. We should do that.
I'm not a tax professional. This is not financial advice. All right. I want to talk about threat extortion and fireballs, John.
Okay. Okay. Those are 3 powerful words you just threw together.
Yes, absolutely. So recently, the team was coming back from the caves. They're heading back to the keep, and the interesting part is there's some amount of journey there. Not a huge amount when they go back. It's like a couple hour journey each way. And sometime earlier in the game, like earlier in the campaign, they had robbed the bandit cave. Okay. They had stolen all the money, and the thief had gotten sprayed with a trap that turned her blue. So she was blue, and it specifically, she stays blue for like some number of days or weeks or something like that. So you stay blue for quite a while. It eventually
it's like those ink packets in when you
Correct.
steal money
from the bank. Yeah, exactly. She got hit by the die pack. That's right. Okay. So the thief leaders, who they never confronted when they went through the bandit cave, okay, I've been like watching them the whole time. Like why they watched them go into the cave, waited for them to come out. So they've just cleared like a very significant portion of the caves. They're beat up. And again, this is second edition. You don't just like instant heal every time you take a rest like it's a video game.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Like if you rest for a day, John, and you're under the administration of a healer, you get 3 hit points back. Otherwise, you get 1.
Whoa.
Okay. It is like magical healing, turns out, is in fact miraculous. Okay.
As well it should feel.
Yeah. So they're very low on spells. A lot of them are still beat up. They're limping. They were very successful, but now they're limping back to the castle. Okay. To rest. And they're going on the road where it goes through the woods, and a voice comes out of the woods that's like, oi, you stole all our money. We want it back, right? Because so they had stolen like, it amounted to probably like 600 gold from the bandits. Not an insignificant sum, certainly, especially for the bandits. Now, in clearing out the leader's cave, they had gotten, I don't know, several thousand gold. They found a portable hole in there, so they were like stacked. Okay. Oh yeah, that's always a win. So the leaders, like, we've got you surrounded. We're going to be fair about this. You took our money. We know you took our money. You've got the blue girl with you. Like, we're the ones who set that trap. So don't try to lie or play us. We know it was you. Okay. You just cleaned out that cave. We don't want to fight. We don't want to kill you. But we want our money back. And in fact, we're going to charge some interest. So you give us half of what you've got, what you made out of that cave. That'll cover our original. And you go on your way, we go on ours. Okay, so now we have threat.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And we have an opportunity for extortion. And I love extortion in a game. The problem is it's very hard in D&D to extort the PCs, to put them over a barrel and make them make a choice that isn't just swing sword. Right. Especially in like more modern D&D where PCs are just like almost always superheroes and can spin back to like full power so quickly. Okay.
Yeah, and there's no like con system in the game where you can be like, oh, this mob con's read to me, so I actually should listen. We just always assume if the DM throws it at us and there is some version of talkie talk and one option is fight the thing, we'll always choose fight the thing.
Right. So here they were weak. They know they're playing second edition, like in a meta way. They know that this is not going to be like that. And they know there's some number of archers they can't see with crossbows leveled at them in the woods around them. Right. Okay. And so the wizard who ends up negotiating makes a very smart choice. Like, is like, okay, I'm going to take 2,000 gold. Like he's got a big bag, right? And he's like, I take basically 2,000 gold off of my donkey. He wasn't carrying it. He's a wizard, but he had a donkey with him that was carrying around a big bag of gold. They purposely had left some money outside of the portable hole. And because this is stuff he had gotten before they got the portable hole. So he kept it in a sack and put it on his donkey. He's like, I'm going to take that entire amount out and I put it on the ground. It's a bunch of gems and gold. I was like, how much does it amount to? And he's like, 2,150 gold. And I said, okay. And they were like, all right, looks fair to us. You can go. Right now, that was way less than half. But what the wizard correctly interpreted was that they don't know what half is.
Right.
Right? Like, they don't know how much money we got out of there. Maybe this is half. It's a lot more than what we stole from them. Like the wizard remembered they got he thought they got about 400 gold. He was a little undershooting it, but he was in the right area, right?
It feels like a win-win situation. You got more than your half, and they got triple.
He correctly interpreted that the bandits would look at that big pile of gold and gems and go, okay, we're making out here, right? We're going to get away scot-free. No reason to risk this. Let's take it. So I was like, so I gave the dude bonus experience for really properly and smartly navigating it. Because I think they had 12 or 13,000 gold total, but so they lost a chunk. But
also portable hole, the bandits don't see that and know exactly how much. It looks like a large portion of what they're carrying.
Exactly. It looked like a big chunk of what was on them. So it was a very smart play. And I loved him actually thinking through, not just going to the swords and the swinging, right? He thought through the situation. And he's a very smart character. So it was very in character for him to sort of, think through the situation logically. And it was wonderful. The party limped home, rested without issue. The bandits, little did they know, went on their merry way. They're gone now. The bandits aren't in the bandit leaders aren't even in the valley anymore. They just left. They were like 2,000 gold. We're rich. We're getting out of here. They left.
They go and they rented a timeshare in Mackinac Island, and they're
exactly.
Retiring.
They're out, buddy. They're retiring to Boca. They're done. And so it just felt very real. The only other thing I wanted to mention here was also this last week, the party got fireballed for the first time, which is always a great moment. They busted in on a wizard. Okay, they're going through part of this dungeon and they know there's a bad wizard behind this door. So they carefully unlock the door. But I'm like, okay, well, you're not making any effort to be quiet. So the wizard hears you coming in the door and he's ready. And he's just they come in, initiative gets rolled. I was like, you both know each other there. You're both expecting an attack. I'm not going to do a surprise. Nobody's surprised. Yeah. But the wizard rolls a relatively low initiative, drops that fireball on the party. And this is old fashioned fireball, right?
Oh, no.
Even at only 5d6 damage, because he was just a 5th level wizard, so he just had access to fireball. Hit points are also not massive. There are people in the party who this will level.
Yeah.
Right. If they don't make their save. And so the whole party just gets rocked. Now they end up winning. They end up beating the fight. But at the end, they're like, woo. So I was like, oh, God, that felt so good.
They're all looking like a Tom and Jerry cartoon afterwards. Just all black and smoking. Mistakes were made. Yeah, you typically don't want to do a start off toe-to-toe battle with the wizard at just about any level. You'll kill the wizard, but how many are you going down first? So
yeah. So that was great. It was just good if the fireball felt dangerous, they all felt very imperiled. And then when they won, they were like, hell yeah. Right? Good victory. And when they eventually found that wizard spell book, it was hidden behind a thing that will kill you, by the way. It was hidden in a place with yellow mold on it.
Oh no.
Which is save or die type of stuff, but they smartly avoided it. At any rate, when they found that spell book, and it's an amazing spell book, they were like, oh my God, this they felt like they earned that. You know what I mean? They've got the burns and the scars to show that they earned that. So it's just a great game overall. Really fun.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like fun. That is in an ideal situation where the players feel their mortality is all too easy to end. And they get out of there feeling how scary and deadly the world is without actually dying, but knowing full well it was a die flipping one way or the other, that it could have been that way.
Yeah. And nobody died. Didn't have to kill anyone to impress it. They just knew no, we were in mortal peril, right? But they earned something. It was good. And it was nice because it went through kind of both that night, starting with the extortion and then ending, with the kind of fireball late in the game. it felt like it had both aspects of the coin, right? Where they talked their way out of what was potentially a lethal situation and fought their way out of what was a potentially lethal situation.
Very
right?
cool. That sounds like a fun session. A white knuckle session, and every now and then those are amazing.
Absolutely.
I wanted to take a sidestep from my talking about my weekly game, but because there was an actual play that I've been listening to on podcasts. I'm not walking the dog or exercising or mowing the lawn. I like to listen to actual plays if I actually find one that is interesting, which there's a whole nother episode. We're going to get into actual plays and our very pointed opinions about them. It's from the Glass Cannon Network or Glass Cannon podcast. And
Okay.
it's a game called Delta Green.
Yes, which I was familiar with when you reached out to
me.
me.
I texted you this week. I'm like, have you heard of Delta Green? I've never heard of this game before. I assume our listeners have not heard of Delta Green. So here's my 30-second summary. It is near history. So in the game they're playing in, it takes place in 2009, but anywhere in the near past.
Roughly modern. Yes.
Roughly
exactly.
modern. Yes. And it's real world. It's our world. And it's kind of Call of Cthulhu where there's horrors and there's, like all this like extraplanar terror. There's sanity checks in the game and stuff, but it feels much more grounded and much more real world. Did you ever watch the first season of True Crime?
True Detective? Is that
True Detective. True Detective.
Yeah. Sure.
It feels very much like True Detective, where it's like it's part crime drama, it's part, action suspense, and then there's this twist of like
this weird supernatural element in the background. Yes.
Right. It feels like close enough to where like the wacky conspiracy theories that we've all heard about in the real world, if one or two of them were real or close to being real and we weren't far off from the reality of them, that's what this world is. Right. And so I really like games that have some element of the real world we live in. And so players can oftentimes think of how someone would react, what they would say, what they would interact with, what they would look for a tool, for a solution to an issue, because it's more top of mind because it's similar to the world we live in. And that kind of game is really fun. Also, you can, it's real easy to base your character off of a TV character, a movie character, that kind of thing, and then twist them 15%, and they're now your own character. But a big thing that this game does is like most of the very first episode, the first episode is 3.5 hours, and of that was like an hour and a half to 2 hours of character creation, and that sounds miserable to listen to, but it was not. They have a whole bond system. They have a way to that they really put into the rule set ways that your character, what their motivations are, what their bonds are, and how the structure of the system will evolve those, some for better, some for worse. And usually everything's kind of a teeter-totter in this game, where it's like you try to improve your bond, which is your relationship with your stepson. In doing so, the fact that you've seen some messed up shit on your missions, you've now showed him a side of yourself by trying to get closer to him.
Yeah,
that's a little bit messed up, and you're closer to him, but now you may have imparted some of that strain onto him. So there's just like fun, really, really fun things there. And so if you're a listener here and you're looking for actual play that you want to listen to while you're doing things, Delta Green by Glass Cannon Network, I recommend.
I think that's an excellent segue into our little optional segment this week. We're just going to do a quick hit here before we start the main segment, which is we wanted to talk about some things that inspire us. John, you sort of drawing inspiration from this Delta Green and talking about like True Detective and stuff like that. It made me think, this is something we had pitched as an optional segment some time back and when we were, planning for the show, and we never really did it yet. And I was like, man, there's so much I draw on. So I wanted us to each basically give like sort of one kind of cool book series or media or, whatever, movies, films, anything like that, television show that we have drawn on at some point to like create a game, inform a game, design a world, anything like that. Okay.
Yes.
So I'll drop mine first.
Okay.
So mine is a book series. And it is by an author named Brent Weeks, and it's specifically called the Night Angel trilogy. So it's a sort of story about a kind of master assassin who ends up adopting this young kid and teaching him how to be an assassin. And it's like the magic of the world is really compelling. The sort of like breakdown of the different societies and stuff like that as the world is really compelling. Brent is a really excellent writer for like creating societies that feel very cool and interesting and layered and compelling. Um, and the magic system is really neat and unique and interesting. So like I think if you're a fan of somebody like Sanderson, you would like a lot of Brent Weeks writing as well, is what I'll say. I'm not saying they're not, there are plenty of differences, but if you like those kinds of elements of like, very sort of detailed worlds and cultures and stuff like that, then you dig this. One of the interesting things about Brent's books is that he never like includes maps. He just describes things, and you have to like kind of put together in your head
Oh,
where the
interesting.
different pieces and parts are. And he loves taking real world elements and then like crisscrossing them in some interesting way, like mixing a lot of different weird things up. So like just like accents and affects and things like that will be just like scattered all around in weird ways, right? But anyways, Night Angel, that whole trilogy is really fun. He's done a couple of different trilogies that are really good, but that one was the first one that I read. And I just think like I personally love assassin characters. I think they're really
Yeah.
cool. I've played a bunch of assassins, and it's always a really fun archetype. And it's just a great story. Both the sort of father figure assassin and the main character are both fascinating.
I got it.
I'll give this one quick sale. Okay.
Okay.
Part of what the assassins do is like they're basically like they eventually become like magically endowed in some way and can like
Okay.
regenerate, and they're very hard to kill. And there's a scene where the kid, the would be assassin, gets himself captured,
Okay.
and he's being tortured by this thing that is meant to kill you. Okay.
Okay.
Like think like he's basically sort of being put on a wheel. You know what I mean? Like a spread you out on a wheel thing, but it's also drowning you. The trick is because he can continually regenerate, he keeps dying and coming back to life over and over and over and over and over again. And so it is just the most horrible torture he has to endure ever as they slowly dawn on them that they can't actually kill him this way. And it's his best friend who's doing it accident
Oh my
because
goodness.
against his best friend's own will. There you go.
Oh, wow. I pulled it up. I did a little Google search, and I have not read this trilogy. I'm going to put it on my list of good reads. So I appreciate you sharing that. I like that. Like I'm going to talk about an author and a book series as well, and I think it's important. And you did a good job of this of explaining what specifically have you taken from it, or what specifically is really unique about this that is great to kind of put into play with your games. My recommendation is actually the biggest reason I'm going to recommend it is about character and developing characters. And that is because it is so easy and so commonplace that if you play a fighter character or a barbarian character, that your character has zero personality.
Sure.
Their personality is I'm mad. I always want to kill stuff, and
Yep.
that's a boring character. So let me point you to Exhibit A, and that is the author Joe Abercrombie. The specific trilogy that I want you to start with is called the First Law trilogy. Or if you just want to read one book, in just in one book, and see if you like it or not, read Red Country. Joe Abercrombie, he has low fantasy worlds where magic is a mystical thing that is not known to the masses, and it is largely a barbarian, Viking, nasty, gritty live, working in the
Gotcha.
dirt people.
Love it.
And most of his characters you would categorize in a D&D world as a fighter or a barbarian,
Sure.
maybe a ranger, very martial characters, but they have so much depth to their personality in what drives them, what haunts them, what have they experienced, what have they lost, who are they close with, how do they keep those people that they're close with at arm's reach because of their fear of what means to be close to them in the nasty world that they live in, and them being warriors. And it really shows you that you can have a really interesting, really even sometimes likable even if they're gruff, even if they're cold, really likable characters, that there's so much more depth for that. And the other plus side of his books is they are page turners, as I describe them. A lot of fantasy books are heavy.
You
They're
get
deep.
lost kind of some in the detail.
Yeah. When there's a lot of world building, then it's just like, oh, we got to get through it. And you're rewarded for getting through it. Sanderson's worlds are a great example of that as well. But these are the world you feel like you're a part of it through the characters experiencing it. And it doesn't spend a lot of time talking about things that are off screen, if that makes sense.
But you're no, that's great.
It's great series. He actually just came out with a brand new book that I've already picked up called The Devils, and I have not read that one yet, but everything he's written, I have loved. So that's my recommendation. And I have taken a lot of characters and a lot of interesting scenarios, a lot of ambushes, a lot of nasty political things, right from his pages. So highly recommend.
Would love it. You know, it's so funny because like the archetype I am most a fan of, and it's one of the hardest ones to do in like kind of modern D&D, is I love playing an intelligent fighter. Like this shows up in books a lot.
Yeah.
Right. In books, it's often the case that the protagonist is like a sort of martially fightery or like, you know, maybe like roguey, but you know, they're like a scrabbly character, right?
Yes.
And they survive by their wits.
Right.
Okay. But like that's so hard to do as like in a sort of D&D paradigm to have like the character that's like a dude who swings a sword and is also smart, right? And survives in that way. It's just like it's almost unheard of as an archetype, and it's so upsetting to me because I think it's just such a solid archetype. So
yeah, I know that they have tried to add a version of that in some recent editions to D&D, and they had like the War Marshal, and there was a 4th edition version of the Fighter that was kind of like that, and they got maneuvers, and they basically could like shout orders like on your turn, and you could help people position.
It always drifts into the charisma guy though at the same time, right? Where it's like you're this kind of order guy, and it's like no, I'm not trying to be a general. I'm not trying to be a tactician leading an army. I'm trying to be like a smart one-on-one fighter who like recognizes opponents' weaknesses and sees that they're leaning a little to their left and drop their guard and this kind of thing, right? That sort of stuff.
You want the fighter that always has one eye open to the way to get out of this unscathed or to solve the problem, not just keep swinging sword till everyone dead.
Yeah, can I make an easy example? Batman.
Yes.
Freaking Batman. Okay. Yeah. Like you in striking a killing blow, you've sacrificed your sure footing. Bop in the ice, right? Like that's a smart fighter, Ra's al Ghul there, like taking him, jumping him in the water, right? So
right. Yeah, that is exactly it. And then that opens you up to a wide variety of different personality types and stuff that goes with that, instead of just me sacrificed int and charisma to be most bashy.
Yeah, exactly. Strong and fast and tough.
Yes.
Exactly, yes.
Right. It's so hard not to be strong and fast and tough when that's an option.
Yeah, what's your character's name? My character's name is Strong and then my last name is Fast and Tough.
Yes. Really, there's no situation I can't brute force my way through.
That's right.
That's what I'm here for. Yeah. And it's like, well, the last thing you want is your players at the table to feel like their character doesn't offer anything in situations that don't start with roll initiative. You know?
I know. I hate that. Yes. I want everybody to be able to participate. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, John.
We got to get into this because we got a whole.
Yeah, we've let them go long enough.
I know.
Okay, so GM horror stories. Now we've delayed as long as we can. We've only delayed because we don't want to share our own shame, but it's time to lay it bare. Who shall start, John? Who shall start?
Why don't you go first? So then I can feel better about what I'm about to share.
All right. I'll start with the most minor one. We're going to build up here, people, to my worst story of all time. So I'll start with a minor one. So I ran for a long time. We've done marathon games. Marathon games are when we all get together, sort of usually 4 to 7 of us for a weekend. We usually get together on a Thursday night after work. Everybody takes Friday off and we play D&D Thursday night, basically after work until midnight, 2 a.m. Play all day Friday, play all day Saturday, play all day Sunday. Sometimes we go to Monday as well. Depends, but you get the idea. So you're generally talking about 40 to 45 hours of D&D, right, over the course of that weekend. So it's a reasonable, if you consider that a campaign, if you play 4 to 5 hours a night, or like if your game session is 4 hours or something like that, 5 hours, whatever, we're getting in between like 10-ish, 10, 11, character or like sessions of a campaign. Does that make sense? Well, so it's effectively 4 months of a campaign compressed into one weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. So and then what I started doing was chaining them together. Like I would run a marathon, and it's writing them as like writing a movie when you're DMing them. Does that make sense, as opposed to a television show? Because I can write a beginning, middle, and end. And so I started chaining them together, because if you're going to do a movie, you might as well write a trilogy.
Of course.
Right? Okay. So the first time I did this was a Musketeers game. So I'm a huge fan. I love like medieval and Renaissance France and French culture. And I love the Musketeers, the Musketeer period, but I also like a lot of other historical periods in France. So I did a magical realism game of Musketeers. So 1630 France. The Musketeers, all never show up in the picture. They're all killed over in the fighting in the Huguenot fortress that they were fighting in before the story starts in the real Musketeer story. And so the characters all take the place. Okay.
Got it.
And I made them fit little archetypes. Like one of them was vaguely D'Artagnan-esque. One of them was vaguely Athos, and so on. One of them was vaguely Porthos, and so on and so forth. They put their own spin on it. I just said, like, this should be the general bounds of the type of character you're playing. And I let people pick whatever archetype they wanted.
Okay.
And it worked really well, because I had those like pre-built points of view templates, like general themes of the characters. It ended up creating a really cohesive group. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is something that I want to explore more. I really haven't done it since then, and I think I was wrong not to do so. But like, if you think about it, when you have these like archetypes that mesh, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Golden Girls, the Three Musketeers, they're all planned to be like segmented archetypes that go well together and tell a unique story. It only makes sense that you get a coherent group out of that, right?
Right.
And I didn't dictate like what class they had to be or anything like that, or it was whatever, right? So the game went really, really well. And then at the end of the second game, so the second marathon, I wanted to show how scary this bad guy was. And so he used some magic that ended up killing 2 of the PCs. Okay. And none of the PCs, and like, this is like magical Earth, but like one of the things we had laid out was that there's no coming back from the dead.
Okay.
If you die, that's it. There's no like resurrection, like revivify exists, and that was it. Okay. So if you can catch them like right away where they're not dead, you can save them. But if they're dead, they're dead. Think Miracle Max. Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
If he's dead, there's only one thing to do. What's that? Go through his pockets for loose change. Okay. So I killed these 2 characters, and we came back for the third one, the last part of the trilogy, and 2 of the players had to show up with new characters. And it just never gelled. Like, the first 2 acts of that marathon were really good. And the third one sucked. And it was a shame, because it was some of my favorite stories I had ever written. And it was completely on me. I set those rules. I killed those characters. I prevented them from coming back when I shouldn't have.
Sure.
Right? What I should have done was like done a fun pulp fantasy story and had them come back through some miraculous way, and just had it be like, had there be some cost or some interesting hook, or like used it to kick off the third adventure, right? Like I should have been smart about it, but I wasn't. I was too obsessed with like, no, the dice fell where they were and you're dead. And I sacrificed the thing that actually matters, the story.
Yeah.
Right.
That is something we have all fallen victim to. And in the moment, we use emotions to make decisions without taking a step back and look at the 30,000-foot view of 1, what are we all here for? And 2, how do those micro decisions make that why we're all here for the best it can be? But it's so hard to get, tunnel vision in those moments. And you can even justify it to yourself in the moment.
Right.
Of why that was Right. If there
No, this will
is
make the world feel more real. It will
right.
increase the verisimilitude. They died, all this stuff. That's what has to happen if I want real consequences, blah, 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 right? I justify it to myself in every way. And at the time, it felt like the right decision. But then we played the third game. It sucked. The group coherency was off. And I was like, oh, I ruined my whole story.
Yeah. And you probably did not even consider it until it's too late, until you're
Correct.
so many hours in, right?
Yep.
And at that point, what can you do? Can you try to, let's say you do the late night Thursday night, you're lying in bed that night, you're like, can I pull this out? Should I just bring the characters back? Can we have a cool aha moment? Can we whatever? But at that point, even is it too late?
It's too late. Yeah. And so I learned a big lesson here, right? And the lesson that I learned was like, don't get that tunnel vision of being like, oh, this is what makes the story real and everything in this moment. Always be thinking about the long-term story, right? Like, what is the actual point of you getting here? There's a story you want to tell. Is this going to impede it or aid it? Period. Right? No short-term moment is worth sacrificing the long-term story. What I should have done, like I said, was let them die, killed them, made the players think their characters were dead, and then actually brought them back through like some kind of pulp fantasy miracle, right? But then had something be resultant from that then kicked off the third story, integrated it in, made it continued to make it real. And then the group coherency would have still been there, and I could have told a compelling third act, and it would have felt motivated by what had gone on thus far. So like it was really just a complete miss, and it was due to my own hubris. Nothing less.
I like to think about like the meta side of like, how do I execute on this while still having it feel not deleting the moment that you had or that where they did drop and all that. And so I think here's my opinion. What I would have tried to do if I could have thought of it in the moment would be, all right, when we schedule the third and final part of the act of this trilogy, player X and player Y, you're gonna have to come up with new characters. I am going to reach out to you about some things that you're going to need to know. Okay. So they leave that session and the rest of the people at the table all assume they're making new characters. When you email them or text them or call them, you say, look, you're not dead. Okay.
Right.
Don't make make a new character, and don't tell the other players that you're not dead. And here's the situation. Maybe you give them some fun little tweak or some fun little thing that's new about them since they came back, right? That's not purely just a punishment, but there's something that's changed in that character, and maybe they have a strong role in creating what that is or deciding what that is. But the only thing that you had at your disposal there is that moment of time between sessions 2 and 3 where you could have realized it then, but often, as you said, you don't get that moment of realization until
after. I clicked at like very late in the third game. I clicked in my head and I was like, oh, yep.
Okay. Do we have any takeaway for our fellow DMs listening out there, or even players, that if something a bit like this is happening, or they see the writing on the wall, or they're in the midst of this, or a resolution or way to avoid it?
Don't be afraid to change direction. Don't get so caught up in your own, don't get so high on your own supply that you can't realize that you've gone wrong, and it's okay. Make a change and make it fit in the story. And as a player, I really wish one of the players had come to me and said, look, man, I really don't want to get rid of this character. How do we make this work? Right.
Yeah. This is not their level 7.
I wish somebody pushed me.
Yeah, we're level 6 or level 7, and we know this campaign where our goal is that it gets to level 20. It's not like, there's a long time to grow into and enjoy and maybe even have a better new character. No. This is the third act. Right. There's no time to grow that, and I think you probably would have been like, yeah, I think you're right.
Right.
So
it would have knocked me out of my stupor, as it were. Yes.
Right. The thing that I'll caution with that is, though, especially as players, is what we're not saying is, we're not saying argue with your DM on all their decisions that they make to try to make them change their mind to do the thing you want to do. Don't do that. Because if you're crying wolf about everything, all you're doing is shutting your DM's ears off to your feedback, and you're creating an unhealthy environment for your game, right? You want it where if you really have thought things through and you do not bring it up at the table, we typically have a house rule of, if there's something that you question, if there's a rule that you don't like, if there's something that the way that things went, we don't bring it up in the session, you can make a note of it and say, point of order here. I want us to circle back about this. Anyone that feels it's important will write a note on their notebook or write a note to themselves on their phone. And then between sessions, we have the conversation. So we're not ruining our time at the table, which is scarce. But what naturally rises to the top is what actually matters to people, because 3 times or 4 times out of 5, those get distilled into the wind, because you realize outside of the emotion of the moment that it's not that big of a deal. That's not the thing that's making or breaking this. So yes, make a note, but find way when cooler heads can prevail, or when you've taken some time
to just like openly collaborate. Hey, I want to work together to how we make this work.
Yeah. Yes. Anytime you can work with your DM, this is the biggest thing for probably maybe this entire episode. If you're a player, is to have a good relationship and open communication with that DM to work together. Because all you've said doesn't matter what it is, when you offer that to the DM, all you said is, I want to work for you. I want to take some stuff off your plate by aiding you and in making this better together. And if a DM doesn't want to do that, maybe it's time to find a new group.
There you go. Yeah. All right. What's your first one, John?
My first one is a little bit more boots on the ground, straightforward, but I've made this mistake more times than I care to admit in Dungeons and Dragons, and I want everyone to know that I'm an idiot. I'll set a specific example. When I did my long-running campaign of Strahd in 5th edition version of the Strahd campaign, I started the campaign in Strahd's castle, where they have all been pulled into the mystical world of Barovia and are seated at his dinner table. There are a number of other guests on this long dining room table, all that end up being NPCs of some repute or another that they will learn to engage with throughout the campaign. So they get some early interaction. These people.
So you got the gang of weirdos all together here. Yep.
And of course, Strahd is hosting the dinner. Okay. Things go crazy throughout the evening. Your typical try to start off the campaign with a bang session. It goes without a hitch. They all get together on this flaming cart that's being running down his mountain by some kind of a nightmare looking horse thing, and they're trying to control it and make it go down these hairpin turns, and trying to escape the castle while crazy things are happening. It just feels like high energy, high impact. They're starting barrels of hay that are on the back of the wagon on fire and throwing them over the edge, and just like a lot of action that is happening that isn't actually rolling for initiative. And the world is changing, and they're finding successes, and they're finding situations that they need to try to resolve on the fly as they're trying.
John, this sounds like a riveting success so far.
Yes. And then
okay.
And then halfway to town, I proceed to make them go through 4 random encounters before they get to town. You know how many of those random encounters actually push the story along, Vince?
I'm going to guess 0. Yeah.
None of them. Anytime you throw dumb monsters at your players for the sake of throwing dumb monsters at your players, you're probably missing something. And sometimes your players want to fight and you want to get some action. We're all here to roll some dice and have some fun. And you should do that. But every time that they're fighting something, it should mean something in the world. It doesn't mean that it's the story changing aspect that will change the whole trajectory of the whole story that as it plays out and the whole campaign as it goes, but it should relate to the story you're trying to tell. I could have had a single combat encounter of these dire wolves that have been jumping down the hill and they've been trying to shoo them off or whatever. And finally the cart topples over and a group of dire wolves catch up to them as they had failed enough checks. And now they have to fight off the dire wolves, and they understand how Strahd was after them. But you also know that Strahd wasn't actually trying to kill them. He was trying to toy with them. And that was the purpose of the encounter. I didn't do that. I just had them fight a bunch of random like forest creatures and stuff. And it just dragged everything to a crawl. And we ended what was 75% of our first session of a campaign being the highest of highs. And all it took was 2 hours of drag out boring fights. And they left that first session not where they needed to leave it, where I wanted them to leave it. So do not have people fight stuff just to fight stuff. Right.
That's right. We're not saying random encounters are bad. They can be good, especially if they increase the texture of the world, the feel of the world. Oh, like this is a dangerous place. That is advancing the story, right? Because it's like, and that's what you said. One random encounter would have been right. Look, this is a dangerous place. There are things here trying to kill you, like blah 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 blah. Like you said with the direwolves, or it could have been some other dark creatures coming out of the woods that as they were attracted by this chaos, and like there is evil and darkness all around here, and this place wants to destroy you. And you could push that home with one random encounter. But you went too far.
Yeah.
Yes.
Went too
Yeah.
far. Went too far. And oftentimes when we think of like random encounters and you roll the random encounter or you've got some stuff planned, and let's say it is a group of, bats that are with their little beady eyes and they're in the woods and stuff, don't make them just jump on the PCs and fight right away. Give those context clues. You hear the cheep, 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 cheep. You see them in these little beady eyes out in the woods lines. Give them an opportunity to make their own decisions. Maybe they want to just keep fighting more stuff, but more than likely they're like, let's get the heck out of here. We know that no good is going to come from this, right?
Letting people nope out of the encounter. Yes. 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, it's something that, sometimes you don't, just like your situation, you don't realize it until you're like, damn, this is the third encounter of this session. And I feel like the story hasn't moved at all. And these combats, they're not really aiding to flesh out the world. They're not really opening up new storylines. They're not expanding on some part of the NPC storyline. They're not showcasing the history or the future for the characters. It is just doing stuff to roll dice. And always when you're going to fight stuff, find a way to loop it into your world. And that can mean a little bit more work on the front end for you. But what you're actually doing is making your life a lot easier to keep the action moving while we still get to kill cool stuff in the process.
Nice. All right, here's my second one.
All right.
So my second one actually is in Rifts. So the very fun but completely insane game that, again, I will force John to do a whole episode on at some point in time. I know a game you've never played. I can't wait to just explain this to you. John, we're going to have to find some way in that show where we can like share images, because I want to like share art and stuff with you or whatever. Like, but that'll need to be a special episode, a very special episode.
Well, there's a share screen button on here, so
we'll have to see how that works at some point. Probably live during a show. At any rate,
when we'll do it. Yeah.
So this is a Rifts game set in Japan. So I'm not going to explain everything about Rifts. Just know that Rifts is a far future fantasy, sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, now returning to civilization game. Okay?
Man, you just said all the keywords.
Yep, it is. And it is all of those things and more. Okay? The important part about Rifts is if you can imagine it, it probably exists in the world. Everything, it is the kitchen sink of role-playing games. It is, everything is in there. All right?
Okay.
But this specifically was set in Japan. And in that game, I had two players who both chose their characters, and they brought them to me and they said, this is what I would, and one had played Rifts quite a while ago, but not in a long time. One had never played Rifts before. They found a couple character concepts that they like and brought them to me and I said, okay, great. And just kind of worked with them to build out the characters mechanically and so on. One of them was playing a very technological backline guy, right? Not a very smart person, like a little tinkerer, a little scientist type person. Yeah. Like somebody who likes messing with machines and building things. Okay. One of them was playing a cyber samurai, like a cyber augmented samurai.
Oh my. Okay.
I guess it's pretty much what it says on the tin. Oh, this is like the most rote baseline for what you're going to get in there, man. We didn't even get to like the dragon cyborgs. Like that's where you really start cooking. At any rate, who was like a frontline fighter warrior type of guy with, vibro katanas and stuff like that. Okay. The problem was, as the game went on, it wasn't working. And the reason was the guy who was playing the cyber samurai, who was ostensibly like a leader, frontline character, like taking charge in most situations, as a player, it's not that person. They're more quiet and reticent and thoughtful and introspective and so on. And they don't like to have put the spotlight of what the whole party has to do on them.
Okay.
And the guy who was playing the backline, quiet, mousy tech, was that player's personality is frontline. I want to be deciding what everybody does. I want to be in charge. I have an opinion character. Okay. And I went on the whole game and kind of nobody really had a great time with it. Because this happened. And it was fine. It was a marathon. It was fine. And so like a couple weeks later, a big chunk of the group was together and we were all discussing. And I was like, what went wrong? That fell off, right? But like I do these like retrospectives on my games, which is like, by the way, that's just another side tip. Do retrospectives on your games, get together with your players and say like what was good, what was bad, what should I do more of, what should I do less of? Just really good advice. Yeah. And do it a couple weeks after or a month after. That way everybody's heads are cool and you're not taking anything personally and the emotions kind of gone away. Anyways, so we're doing that. And what we eventually came to was like the group didn't gel because those two key characters, and there's only 5 players at the table. Okay. If 2 players aren't showing up, it becomes really hard for the rest of the group to carry it. Right. And I realized that game would have been better if I had literally just reached over the table from my DM screen and yes, and like picked up their 2 character sheets and swapped them and be like, you're this now, you're this now. Okay. And so it made me think a lot about where I went wrong here was over the course of the game, I saw it not working.
Mm.
And the real sin here was not that I let the players get to that point, because you don't necessarily know beforehand. Like you can have conversations.
You don't want to tell them what to play or what to do either. It's not your place.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But when I saw it happening, I didn't stop and say, hold up. We got a problem.
Yep.
Okay. I was so barrel ahead, like focused on like, no, we got to go. We've got so many hours for this marathon. Let's go. And this is the problem with running a game like that, as opposed to like week to week. Week to week, you'd have time in between where it would click to you and you could realize and have a conversation. But when you're literally just like playing from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. 4 days in a row or something, there's no break time.
No.
We went ahead and ripped the emergency brake right out of this car and then put a brick on the accelerator, right? That's what's happening.
No.
But what I should have done was said, we got to stop. Okay. This isn't working. And like just had an open conversation.
Yeah.
Even though it would be disruptive to the game, it would have been better than what happened, which was bad.
Right.
It would have been less bad.
Right.
Right. And so that's it. And like, I think what it also made me think about was in the future, I think more about the players and the type of characters they bring to me. And I'm not going to tell them what to play, but I am going to have open conversations with them. And I've started doing this. Like when somebody suggests a character and I know there are people at your table who are more quiet. There are people at your table who are more brash, who are more ostentatious, who like being more center of attention, more background, like whatever, all sorts of different psychographic things. And when somebody brings a character in and is clearly very different than that, I've started having conversations with them where I say openly, okay, I know oftentimes you like playing back, line characters. You don't talk a lot. You like having small bits. This is going to require you to be much more involved and active. Are you okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if they say yes, then I back their play 1,000%. Okay. And I'm going to work hard to make sure that that's successful. But I want them to take a moment and think about it. Right.
Right.
And then if it's not working, I will stop and we will talk. Right.
We got to work through this.
Right.
We got to
work through this. That was the lesson I learned there.
I like how your failure was just your pushing it on your player's failure. So way to go, Vince.
No, they were good players who just picked characters they thought interesting. They were completely innocent. It was my fault. 100% my fault.
Sure. Okay. All right. My next one is about crossing a road. This took place way back in a 4th edition campaign that I ran where this is back in the early days when they first came out with these websites where you could like make your entire campaign at a website. They've got fancier ones now with a lot more detail.
Like World Anvil type of stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. Okay. This was like an early form of that, and it wasn't super great, but I was like, oh my gosh, I made maps, I defined regions, I like fleshed out an entire world, which is like, don't ever do that, people. I mean, maybe if you really, really enjoy that, but that's a separate hobby in and of itself, is world building. And so I was just way over my head, and I ran this campaign for probably close to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Long time. And it got to a point in the campaign where they got to this desert city in a continent that they hadn't spent a lot of time in. And this city is slavery is well known, and it was they were very much in a hostile environment, and
got kind of a Dark Sun feel to it.
Very much so. And they stood out like sore thumbs. So the problem that I did is I wanted it to feel like they weren't at home. I wanted it to feel like a city that's actually a dungeon, right? But if it's a dungeon that's a city, you can't just like fight everything that you come across, right? Because the city has got rules and laws and law enforcement and all this stuff and whatever. The problem,
as Vin Diesel taught us, when you fight the street always wins.
That's exactly the situation that I did not see myself encountering. But what I ended up doing was, in order for it to feel so hostile and something that they were really going to struggle with, is I made everything they do, everything they attempted, like teeth pulling level of struggle and difficulty.
Gotcha.
Crossing the street, because they had these massive thoroughfares, as the city map, if you zoomed out, was outlined like the shape of a star, and in each of the cardinal directions, separating the 4 quadrants of the city, were these massive thoroughfares that were probably 100 feet across, maybe more. And to cross from one quadrant to another was a massive endeavor of like getting through and not being seen, not being stopped, not being harassed, not being grabbed and tried to sold into slavery or pulled into the slave pits or put into indenture servitude or become a gladiator against your own will. Like, there was everything. Nobody was their friend. And I made no NPCs in that whole environment that actually could aid them. So they were just like miserable, because they could do all sorts of things, but any decision that they had to put into action was just like, it was just too much.
Yeah, you're just torturing them the whole time.
I just tortured them the whole time. And the goal was for them to realize that this was torture and to get the heck out of there after they got the information, the important parts to the story and the what evil there was in the world, and get the hell out of there, because they didn't want to spend much time in there. And they did that eventually, but I made it last twice as many sessions as it should have, because everything slowed to a crawl, and everything they did made the session get drag on. So that was a big one. That was on me. My bad, y'all.
Oops.
Yeah, it was supposed to be there like 2 or maybe 3 sessions, and it was more like 6 or 7 sessions that they were there.
Yikes.
The biggest thing that I did was I understood it after about session 2 that this is not something that can be sustained, but I really struggled to pull the plane out of the nosedive to get them out of there in a way, again, holding too tightly to your own chest what you think should be. I didn't want them to get out easy after it's already shown them how hard everything was, and just finding a creative solution that got them the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, and I feel like looking back on that now, it feels like the way you could have gone, like, because there's many ways you could have gone, right? Not map them, do checks to cross the street, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think, like, if my spin on that initially off the top of my head is you have them come into the city and immediately get captured. Okay.
Right.
Like, just immediately they get captured. This is a hostile place. And you do that by surrounding them. You're gladiators now or something. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the point is, once they get captured by one of the big bad people groups in the city, that actually offers them a modicum of protection. Okay?
Right.
Because the other big bad groups don't mess with them anymore, because they're part of that group now, right? So like, they've joined a gang.
Yeah. That's nice.
Okay.
You got to give you got to give some allies of some kind, even if they don't feel
so
like
they
good
have
allies.
Like allies they don't want, but they have these allies, right? And so the dude's like, think of it like Maximus and Gladiator, right? Like the guy who initially captures him, and he like put him through the gladiator pit one time. They win out. They kick the living crap out of the other gladiator group or whatever, right? And their leader is like, "Wow, you guys are awesome!" And like eventually they win their gladiator boss over, and he goes from an unwanted ally to actually an ally. And then like they can explain, he figures out that if they do their mission, it's going to help him take down this rival group. in some way. So those two things align in goals. They realize they have a shared objective, right? So now they have the cover to move around the city because they're known gladiators who kick the crap out of people and are part of, they're wearing they have the emblem on their shoulder that says, we belong to this guy, don't mess with us. And then they do their mission. And then the guy's like, all right, you brought down the group as payment. There's the door. Get out of here. You don't belong in this city.
Yeah, gosh, where were you 20 years ago when I was running this campaign, Vince? This campaign was when I got back into D&D after a slight hiatus in college, and it was like my first soiree into DMing. And I had played, through college, but I hadn't run my own thing. And so you get your own grandiose ideas of like everything is going to be the best ever, and every aspect of this is going to be so unique and so amazing or whatever. And I just stumble over my own feet. I put rocks on my own path just so I could fall over them is what it felt like. And I could probably go on for hours on mistakes that I made in this campaign. Many of them I've compartmentalized so I don't have to relive them, but just enough pain points to understand that a key bloodline that I've tried, that I really took from this years of punishing my poor players in this campaign, was that more times than not, simpler is better and follow the fun. And
that's right.
I did the opposite of both of those things.
Love it. All right. Well, I'll transition into my last story here as we're winding down. My last story is my greatest regret. It's the worst thing I've ever done to PCs. It's the meanest I've ever been. It's the stupidest thing I've ever done. And it's just all around dumb. And I regret it to this day. So I started a new campaign. This is a very long time ago. This was the inception of my current group. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they got to the top of a tower. It was a powerful wizard's tower. They got to the top after fighting their way through, and they found that the wizard had long ago died. But he left behind a puzzle that had the answer they needed. On a stone slab, so there's a stone slab in the center of an otherwise empty room, there is a blank space on the stone slab, and then there are 4 letters. The letters are S-O-N-D. So blank space, S-O-N-D. So think the word sound, but no U.
Got it.
Yeah?
Got it.
And that's the puzzle. There was no explanation, no setup, no nothing. Now, in the backstory, I had vaguely mentioned, that this wizard's portfolio, he was like some powerful winter eladrin, and his goal in life was rebirth, right? Like that he was trying to live forever to eventually figure out how to rebirth himself because he had committed so many sins. He didn't think he was going to be able to like continue along his path. Okay. That was like all in the backstory of the wizard, but they had long forgotten that backstory I gave them. Okay. Right. And so the puzzle was meant to be, and this is the stupidest thing ever. Okay. Sorry, it was S-O-N-D space. I apologize. Move the space to the other side. I'm screwing up my own puzzle.
Oh, no. That's why they couldn't figure it out, Vince.
Yeah, no. The space is on the other side. So S-O-N-D blank. So what comes next is the puzzle.
Okay.
Fine. So we got this rebirth theme. But again, I say that now to you. I knew it, but they didn't remember it. And I didn't do anything to remember it. I didn't put anything in the room to remind them. I could have had like frescoes talking about that or art hanging on the walls or anything. Didn't do any of that crap. Empty room that they are now trapped in. There was no way to leave the room. Impossible to leave. Could not back out. Could not teleport away. Could not plane shift away. The room was an oubliette. Okay. And so they're like, okay, well, something goes there. What goes there? And so they just randomly tried something and the room like shook and reacted. And they came to realize they had like a couple tries left. They came to realize they had 3 tries at this. Okay. So they couldn't just sit there and like try every character / letter / number or whatever. Right.
And there were no like tablets or stones that had letters on them anywhere in the room either. Right.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
They just had to like scrawl it in.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right. And so now the actual answer was J. Why J? September, October, November, December, January. Rebirth into the new year. Okay. Why would I use just the last 4 months? What? Who? Why? That's so dumb. I'm so stupid. And John, they went through the things it wasn't. So they're like, well, it's not days of the week. And then literally a guy at the table went, well, it's not months the year. And I just sat there silently. This was 5 minutes into this puzzle.
Oh,
Okay.
no. And if you don't speak up in some regard at that point, you can't then do it later on when hours pass and they still haven't figured it out. Because,
Correct.
oh,
Correct.
no.
And so I didn't speak up. John, they spent 4 weeks of game, 5.5 hours per
Oh, my
night
God.
in this room thinking this through. We would get together. I would sit down. They would talk and theorize and guess for 5.5 hours, and then we would call it a night.
Uh,
That went on for a month.
oh, God. Yeah, you just had to put the other month letters in there, man.
Yes, correct. I could have done a million different things. I could have put hints and frescoes and images and arts and reliefs around the room. I could have had embodied voices talking to them, giving them the disembodied voices, giving them clues, right? Or something like that when they went wrong. Like I could have, like I could have been poetic and cryptic about it, but I could have had something. I
Yeah.
could have had that. I could have refreshed their memory as to what this guy's backstory was because they had learned it like a month earlier in the game time, right? Where
Yeah,
they were
they would
going to this
remember
guy.
that.
Right. I could have made the actual puzzle like most of the year. Like it could have started with an F for February and then gone all the way through, right? And then had that one missing or something, right?
Uh-huh.
A million different stupid things I could have done, even using this dumb, pointless puzzle. Okay.
Uh,
I did none of them.
uh,
None of them. The fact that my 4 players did not physically accost me and kill me shows that they are better humans than me. I
oh.
lament this and regret this to this day. I apologize to all of them. I am sorry I put you through that. I learned a very valuable lesson.
Oh.
And that is one, think more. Your players don't have all the knowledge you do. When you make a stupid puzzle, give
Right.
them hints, let them have the appropriate tools they need to solve it. 2, if they're struggling, just help them. There's
Yes.
no benefit in torturing them. It's a freaking game. This is
Right.
a stupid puzzle. Solve it and move on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even think because I don't want this to be an excuse for people to like be hesitant of putting in puzzles and putting in
Right. We've got a
tricky
puzzle episode as
things.
well in the future.
Yes. And because I think that they're amazing and they're a great way to switch things up. Um, it wasn't that. And it wasn't even that the SOND space was a terrible puzzle. It's the surrounding lack of them being able to pull in information from their environment, from their history, from any kind of connection with this character before that would have allowed them to get there. That was what stopped it, was that the information was completely cut off. And at a certain point, you got to realize they're just not going to get it. And even if they do get it, they're not going to feel the satisfaction. They're just going to be like, oh, thank God this thing's over. And they're not going to look
Correct. I
back
should
on
have
it
called the
finally.
kibosh an hour into it, not 20 hours into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, no, I think that I think it's probably safe to say, and I haven't thought this through, so I'm going to hear your initial response to this, especially as a DM, because we put so much weight on ourselves for running the game. There should be no singular hill that you should be willing to die on. Doesn't
That's
matter
right.
what it is.
Yep. That's
No,
the summary of everything we've talked about today is the only hill you should be willing to die on is fun and the story you're all collectively telling. Everything else can be sacrificed. Period.
Yep. Yep. And if you can draw a direct line, so much so that your players will see that direct line to the fun, then that's the decision to make. And that's
Right.
not always easy to see in the moment. And that's the tough thing. And
Right.
that's always where I'd say some of the best advancements in learning that I've had as a DM is when you talked about like the breakdown post session is one from those, and 2, my own breakdown, my own kind of critique of myself and thinking, how did I want it to go? How did what they change throw that for a loop? Because that's going to happen and that's a good thing. And how did I adapt and still make it fun? And let's take that sheet, turn the page, and find a way for the next one to try again. And if you're willing to just reiterate and do that and always try to make the next one good, even though none of them are ever perfect, I think you're going to end up with more great sessions than the other way around.
Totally agreed.
Well, that is the, I guess, the peak of the iceberg of the mistakes that we've made in running games.
I cannot believe anybody has tortured their players worse than what I just did. I love how his escalating torture was our references there.
Yeah. It made me immediately think, as you're running through that, I'm like, oh yeah, I got examples that are very similar to that. So don't feel like you're alone in that, Vince, and that we all haven't done something similar. But that's a good one. I think that means that you, like, after the session 4, I think your player should have forced you to get the tattoo SOND somewhere on your body as a
mark of shame.
As a reminder. And then throughout your remaining days on this earth, you'd have to ask people to solve the riddle on your forearm.
Shame.
Yeah, bow to you, Princess Buttercup. All right. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us today. We appreciate all you Gazeboids being here, listening to us on your podcast of listener of choice or on YouTube. Reminder, we are on both. Follow us, subscribe to us on both, even if you only watch or listen to us on one. That helps a lot. It helps other people find us. Vince, how else can they help us out in this weird world of Fireball Gazebo?
Oh, why, there's so many ways, Gazeboids. So first of all, don't forget to leave a comment. Share your story of your own shame below if you dare, or maybe expose somebody else. That's fine. Just don't name names, but talk about your stories where you ran into a similar situation down there. Drop us a comment. Don't forget to hit like. Share this out with everybody you can. Bring in other people. Anytime you can recruit additional Gazeboids, that's amazingly helpful. So share the podcast out there. Give it a like. It helps other people find it, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be back before you know with another one, and hopefully it won't be us making fun of ourselves nearly as much and leaving the podcast episode in shame.